Hi folks, before we begin, please be aware that we are recording this webinar. If you have any questions about the resources, we encourage you to follow up via email at support@electionsgroup.com. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Annie and I'm an election expert with the Elections Group.
Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca, the Communications and Program Manager for the Elections Group.
For those of you who may be joining us for the first time, the Elections Group is an election administration consulting firm. We partner with state and local election officials to implement new programs or improve processes for voters and stakeholders. We provide guidance, resources, and direct management support for jurisdictions. Our team is made up of former election officials and election experts from across the United States. We're pleased to have you all with us today for our next highlight of resources for the election administration community. Each week, we'll showcase resources from the Elections Group paired with resources from other organizations in the election space. Every 4 weeks, we're going to focus on a different topic, and we'll take a deeper dive into the resources available each week.
This month, we will focus on ballot processing and chain of custody. This week, we are highlighting the election group's ballot Dropbox implementation and ballot Dropbox retrieval processes, and the EAC's chain of custody best practices. All right, let's get right into the resources. Perfect. So the ballot drop boxes offer a secure, convenient alternative for voters to cast their completed mail ballots. They save money for voters in jurisdictions where return postage is not prepaid, and they can reduce costs for election authorities where postage is paid. Our ballot Dropbox implementation guide walks election officials through the process of establishing ballot drop boxes in their jurisdiction. Voters like ballot drop boxes. In jurisdictions where vote by mail is prevalent, as many as 80% of voters choose to return their voted mail ballot at a ballot drop box. Ballot drop box program can help build public trust in the elections process. Ballot drop boxes can reassure voters who mistrust the postal system because of lost or delayed mail, or who worry about someone potentially tampering with their ballot. Ballot drop boxes also provide a solution for voters who are concerned about their signature being exposed to anyone outside of their local election office. For election officials, ballot drop boxes ensure that ballots are received in time to be processed. This is critical since many voters wait until election day to return their ballots. This guide is divided into 3 sections. The first is planning will help election officials decide the type, location, equipment, and staffing for the 3 types of ballot drop boxes. Then, voter outreach and communications contains suggestions for promoting ballot drop box convenience and availability, and to help publicize your request and return deadlines. Then, execution includes sample forms that can be used separate from this guide to train temporary support staff and used as a daily checklist and chain of custody logs, including a section specifically for election night. All right, our second resource is ballot Dropbox retrieval processes. It is a quick chat hosted by Jennifer Morrell, our CEO and co-founder. And it was created through a partnership with the Stanford D School, the Stanford MIT Healthy Elections Project, the Center for Tech and Civic Life, and the Prototyping Systems Lab. Here, Jennifer discusses what happens when teams retrieve ballots from a ballot box during an election season. The video emphasizes strict chain of custody, which is a critical component of the ballot retrieval process. All right, I think that wraps up TAG resources, so I will pass it to Annie to share the EAC resource.
Thanks, Rebecca. As Rebecca mentioned, chain of custody is critical for many aspects of elections administration, but especially when it comes to ballot drop boxes. Today, we wanted to highlight the EAC's best practice guide for chain of custody. Chain of custody is essential to a transparent and trustworthy election. Every election office should have written chain of custody procedures available for public inspection prior to every election. Once a chain of custody process is initiated, it must be followed with every step documented. Upon completion, the process should be reviewed and updated based on any lessons learned. This report outlines items election officials should consider when developing or revising their chain of custody procedures for physical election materials, voting systems, and the use of third-party auditors for conducting audits and electronic discovery. Chain of custody refers to the processes or paper trail that documents the transfer of materials from one person or place to the next. Every state and local jurisdiction has its own controls for ensuring the chain of custody of election materials is properly maintained. These controls might include locks, seals, audit logs, witness signatures, or other security measures. This document is intended to provide best practices, checklists, and sample forms for maintaining a proper chain of custody related to the successful operation of an election, but is not meant to be comprehensive of every election process. Jurisdictions are reminded to implement these voluntary best practices only after reviewing federal, state, and local laws and regulations. While the chain of custody process varies by jurisdiction, there are a few key questions to keep in mind when developing your chain of custody materials, such as where is the item that is going to be transferred? Are there adequate safeguards in place? Who currently has access to this item? What makes this item unique? When and where is this item being transferred, such as a date, time, and location? Where is this item being transferred to? Who is transferring this item? What is the condition of the item to be delivered? Who witnessed this transfer? When and where did the item arrive? And what is the condition of the item upon receipt? The chain of custody of ballots, voting equipment, and associated data is essential to ensure the election system remains trustworthy. Documentation of the chain of custody also provides evidence that all voting procedures were followed. It is a best practice for chain of custody procedures to be clearly defined in advance of every election, well documented, and followed consistently throughout the entire election life cycle or process. The key to an effective chain of custody is to have a set of procedures which are followed in practice. The procedures should be in writing with all steps documented. Chain of custody should be thought about as a holistic process that takes all required pieces, such as data collection, transparency, processing, review, etc., into account. This robust guide provides examples, templates, and infographics that can be used in your office. Download it today to get started. We also wanted to highlight some examples in the wild of election offices across the country who are doing some really amazing work. Washington County, Oregon has an excellent video series on their website to teach voters about the vote-by-mail process. The videos, Let's Unwrap the Vote-by-Mail Process, Voting Made Easy, Ballot Processing, and Voting Made Easy, Properly Marking Your Ballot, show voters the process from start to finish. The videos highlight the secure processes and checks that ensure each ballot is handled correctly, from when the ballot is returned by the voter until archiving the ballots after the election. The videos also explain how ballots are processed, including steps like verifying voter information, securely transporting ballots, and counting votes. It aims to build trust in the election process by showing how carefully ballots are managed. Kudos to Washington County, Oregon, and keep up the great work. So thank you for everyone for joining us today, and thank you to Rebecca for a great discussion. Resources mentioned in today's discussion have been placed into the chat. We'd love to see if you've used any of the resources provided in our chat so far. If you've used or customized one of the resources, let us know. Send us an email with a screenshot or description. And as always, our inbox is open if you have any additional questions. Please email us at support@electionsgroup.com. Thank you, and we'll see you next week.